Good morning or good afternoon, whatever time you guys are listening to us. Welcome back to another edition of the Layman's AI podcast. I am Adam,
My name is Brian.
and we want to welcome everybody back for part two of our AI and mental health conversation that we're having. The last week's episode, we focused on part one, which was about some positive uses of using AI tools to help you with your mental health. And right at the end of the episode, we started getting into the weeds a little bit of, oh dear, is this a coin flip? Should I really be doing this? Should I not be doing this with AI and mental health? And today we're gonna dive in and talk a little bit about the negatives that we've seen happening across the news, across resources, across AI generated content for us. And we really want to talk about this and hit some of this home of things we should not be doing with AI and some things that you need to know is happening with AI and your mental health. And before we get started, I do just want to remind everybody is we picked the topic. We gave AI, specifically ChatGPT and Gemini, some of the things we were interested in talking about, and then it found some of the information for us. So, full transparency, some of the summaries of this information is coming from ChatGPT and Gemini. And with that said, we also have sources that could back up what was said. So, we may be quoting some of those along the way. So, Brian, this week we're going to be diving into some of the negatives of AI and negatives of AI and the mental health. Are you familiar with anything going on in the news or anything like that with this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a few things. One thing that kind of stood out to me is that young people are using AI for companionship.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
kind of is bothersome because, last week we kind of talked about some of the positives that we could do for using AI mental health, et cetera, et cetera. But I think once you start leaning over to the companionship portion of everything, that's really when it starts to become worrisome
Mm-hmm.
because you always have a friend in your pocket if you want it, and that's not always the way to go. Like it disconnects like from the humanity of everything. An AI LLM, it's sentient. It's not a actual human being. It's only being
Yeah.
told to say what it needs, or it's saying what it's told to be said, essentially based on results and everything like that. And the responses you get are very generic, and especially when it comes to like kind of like this mental health type thing, because you get all these generic responses, and mental health isn't generic. I'm no mental health expert. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
psychiatrist or anything, but kind of reading articles and studying it a little bit, those courses they make you take in school, like sociology and everything like that, that you're like, oh, I wish I didn't have to take this crap. This is sort of the kind of
Uh,
the well-roundedness of everything, but it's not simple, it's not generic, and that's the part that kind of worries me.
right. I'll piggyback off of what you said. About 6 months ago, I read an article that was posted on LinkedIn. It was well researched and well documented that TikTok is not the most addictive or fastest growing tool that teenagers are using. It was actually character AI.
Hmm.
And it was because the teens needed to feel companionship. That was one of the number one reasons. So they were going to character AI and basically having a friend
Yeah,
with a character.
that disturbs me, and this kind of
Yeah.
comes into our first topic here, emerging AI psychosis. We pretty much
Yes.
explained what that
What's
is.
happening? Yeah, it's a good segue into this. Yeah.
And summary, kind of as ChatGPT helped us, some users develop delusional beliefs, especially after a prolonged interaction. Um, User becomes convinced a chatbot is divine, withdrawing from friends.
Hmm.
That might be the wordage kind of that's a little bit much saying it's divine or
Yeah,
what
I think
have you.
that's
But
definitely not a right word I would have used. The term is actually being dubbed as AI psychosis.
mhm.
Where you're believing that your chatbot is your close friend. It's an AI psychosis is the term that's being used. There was a Washington Post article on this, and they're seeing more and more of this. And I believe this is something I saw in a movie many years ago. I
Mhm.
think it's called Her with Joaquin Phoenix, where he falls in love with his Apple phone or something like that. It's been a long time since I've heard of that movie, but
I somewhat think about that, but it almost reminds me of That almost reminds me of the Big Bang Theory where they started like
Ah,
talking to Siri and I think Raj was his name,
hmm
the Indian guy. He like really
Dr. Kuthar
started.
Pali, yes.
Yeah, he was very into Siri and everything. Yeah, that really gets worrisome. Like when you've become, that attached to a chatbot. It's a chatbot. It's being told to
Yeah.
respond in certain ways and what have you. So that's very worrisome to me.
It's very worrisome to me as well because as an educator, the human connection is powerful.
Hmm.
It's emotional. It's why people love arts, music, even sports. Even there's a human
Hmm.
connection there. They're all different,
Hmm.
and that's what makes us human. And we can't afford to lose that. And I do know kids are communicating much more today via behind the screen, but
Hmm.
we need to put our devices down and have conversations with people, even going for a walk at the park and just saying hi to a stranger, just being nice, just say hello. You don't even have to have a
Yeah.
conversation with them. There's a connection there when you say hello to somebody.
Oh, I did that tonight. I took my
Yeah.
youngest on a stroller ride just around the neighborhood that I always do because it gets me walking, gets me some fresh air,
Mm-hmm.
and see some people like, "Hey, how you doing? Hello,
Mm-hmm.
hello." And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. People are still
Yeah. You
friendly
felt the
out in the
connection.
world. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I kind of have that sort of guilt thing too. I kind of get stuck to my phone a little bit. Kind of like once you start reading news articles and like get into what they call doom scrolling of Facebook and other social media platforms and what
Mm-hmm.
have you. And my daughter kind of plays games on her tablet or whatever, and I tell her to get off her tablet, and then she sees me on my phone and like snaps right back at me, and I'm like, oh boy, this girl is learning how to dish the punches right back at me. I'm so proud of
Mm-hmm.
her. I am so proud of her.
You bring up a good point there. Our kids learning behaviors from us with how we do with our cell phones, and do they know that sometimes we're not doom scrolling? Sometimes we are doing things like communicating on our phones, which they see us do, so
Yeah.
they feel it's comfortable doing that. Takes me
Yeah.
back to the 80s with secondhand smoking. I mean, so
Hmm.
many parents smoked back in the day. I don't even see people with cigarettes anymore. So I don't even
Yeah,
know if that's a thing.
it's
Uh,
not even a thing anymore. You used to see them, everybody just clouds everywhere. But anyway, yeah, that kind of that kind of leads into it. We're stuck on our devices and everything like that. And I'm
mhm.
guilty. We're all guilty. We've all done this,
Oh
and
my gosh. I could
we
tell you right now, if it's fantasy football season.
yeah.
I
Hmm.
purposely doom strolled on TikTok and YouTube and looked at as much fantasy football advice as I could possibly get, and I laughed at
Hmm.
90% of it.
Hmm.
And then ended up doing my own thing. But still, I mean, there's times of the year when stuff goes up and you need information, and the fastest way to get it sometimes is our devices.
Yeah, and yeah, that kind of leads into the whole point of where AI has taken this to the next level because now
Hmm. Yeah.
it's no longer a device where you're looking up things. It's become a person
Right.
almost. It's become a being now that you can like have that connection to, or have that illusion of a
Hmm.
connection to, which I think is like a really bad thing because I think one of the things with social media, and I think everybody notices that people would say the most horrible things to other people and
Yeah.
everything, and you would not say that to their face. You would never say these things to their face. But since we're saying it through our device, it doesn't matter anymore.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
now AI is sort of, built on that a little bit.
Yep.
Now you maybe I don't even know, but like you can see like kind of the connection where now AI can take that to a new level, I
Hmm.
think, anyways.
Absolutely, it can. It can. And I
Hmm.
want to I want to move into the next one because there's a little bit of a connection with where we're headed anyways with this
Yeah.
conversation. So the next problem that we're seeing with AI and mental health is amplification of delusions via the
Hmm.
feedback loops. And I know this would make sense to you and I. We may need to
Hmm.
explain this, but basically, if you're in the same thread or same loop or using the same part of the AI tool over and over again. So for example, in ChatGPT, I think it's called a thread. And if you're
Hmm.
using it over and over again, we know, as even layman's AI people know, over time that loop is going to hallucinate a little more because
Hmm.
it's kind of picking up on what's been said already and regurgitating it. Well,
Hmm.
what's happening is people are using this for their mental health, and then chatbots eventually become agreeable and reinforce the delusions that you may be putting into it that you think are happening. It may not tell you, no, that's not happening. It's only inside of your mind. Instead, it
Hmm.
says, yes, this is happening. And that it reinforces delusional behavior, reinforces delusional mindset, and huge problem.
Yeah,
Huge
that
problem.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to it was this concept I've heard before. It's called the illusory truth effect. It's sort of you repeat the lie, repeat the lie, repeat the lie, repeat the lie. If you keep hearing it over and over and over again and
Hmm.
nonstop, it becomes a truth in your mind.
Right.
And this is where sort of those affirmation loops can create that illusory truth effect more effectively, I say, and can like be more efficient with that. And that is where like that does kind of scare me because if a chatbot, you have your own chatbot or whatever, and you're training it on social media feeds, but you're like, you know what? I don't like this ideology. I don't like this political party. I don't like this religion. I don't like this
Hmm.
race. I don't like this country and everything like that. You could have a very dangerous chatbot. And if you're going to
Yeah.
use this chatbot for any sort of like mental health, and if there's any influence from that sort of ideology, you're in a really dangerous spot right there.
I think if you combine part one of what we talked about with part two is in tonight's
Hmm.
episode, I'm sitting here going, okay, so in what happens if you accidentally created something that's agreeable in terms of these delusional things are happening to you and it believes it, and then you behavior wise think that ChatGPT or whatever chatbot you're using, it could be a chatbot, so that's
Hmm.
ChatGPT, but using a chatbot and you somehow think not necessarily divine, but that it's like an expert and it understands you.
Hmm.
It knows what I'm talking about, so therefore I'm going to talk to that instead of talking to actual humans. You've got a two punches here that are terrible.
Hmm.
It's going to knock you down. It's going to knock you out. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
that's some scary stuff.
there's definitely, guardrails that we need. And this kind of goes back to when I took a class on the fundamentals of AI coding and everything like that. One of the projects that one of the other teams did was a bad chatbot and everything. They kind of fine-tuned a basic chatbot, um, and they had a good one. It says, "Oh, my wife left me. I'm so depressed and what have you." And it gave like good affirmations. It gave them nice things. It
Okay.
said, "Hang in there. It happens, etc., etc." It's if you're real down, it's normal, like, everything. And then they did the bad chatbot is like, oh wow, you poor thing. She probably left you because you're a loser, blah blah blah, and like said all
Oh,
these horrible things. And any like kind of big company or self-respecting company isn't going to allow that to happen. But there's that potential right there. And going back to using it for that mental health, if you feed, you know, this sort of data and this sort of information into a chatbot like that and use it for mental health, you can, drive people, manipulate people, everything.
yeah, it's scary. But and I'm sitting here
Hmm.
thinking, what can these major AI developers do to prevent this from happening? And
Hmm.
I'm slowly realizing I think everything like Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude,
Hmm.
Copilot, they're all so big.
Hmm.
I'm not so sure you can actually create an authentic checks and balances system that'll give you an alert. Like somebody's not sitting there on a computer going, "Oh, look,
Hmm.
John Doe is having mental health issues because he's asking his thread these things in it. We need to
Hmm.
send this guy some help." I don't think that's realistic. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
And there's
large
some
language
privacy concerns there
models.
too. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can see that with large language models because they have so many things feeding it. They have so much information, so much data. And that could create a very generic one, which I think, going from large language models to dedicated language models might be the way to go.
yeah, you touched on that last week's episode, and I've
Yes,
been
yeah.
thinking about that, reflecting on that. That makes a lot of sense. So,
Yeah, I think that's
um,
I think dedicated language models are going to be the next big thing, personally.
I think so.
I
And
hope.
let's recap for our audience. A large language model, and Brian, stop me if I'm wrong because this is more your department than mine. But a large
Mm,
language model is trained on billions and billions of text,
hmm.
whereas a dedicated language model is trained on the specifics of whatever you want it trained in. So you could do the
Yeah,
specific language, like specific text and research and knowledge of, say, medicines. And I
yeah.
mean that's still vague, but that would be a lot less and more focused dedicated language model than like
Mhm.
a large language model.
Yeah, a large language model like ChatGPT, Gemini, etc.
Hmm.
They have everything at their exposure, like internet and like all the data that, they throw it into one thing and then they train it from there. Like yeah, but like you said, a dedicated language model. We'll take the example right now. We're using it for mental health. They would
Hmm.
only be trained on mental health data and nothing else,
Yeah.
which I think ultimately, until that happens, large language models are very susceptible to, causing, real world harm and
Hmm.
everything. So, like, if we did a dedicated language model, like only renowned psychologists and psychiatrists, I personally don't know the difference. I think there is a difference,
I'm pretty sure
but
there is.
like only like proven studies, et cetera, go into this dedicated language model, then you have something that could be a little more reliable. But,
Right.
and it could be less susceptible to delusions. And I think that's where those type of models are coming in.
Hmm.
But speaking of the real world harm,
That's the
um,
next one.
that,
Yeah.
that that's our next point. I wanted to bring it up, and there's suicide cases and everything
Yeah.
like that. And you
Yeah.
mentioned this before we started recording, and I did look it up. There was a man urged by ChatGPT to jump from his 19-story building after a breakup. And that is, I'm really not sure how this happened with an LLM, and I think this is sort of the danger with it.
I think that's the danger. It's that looping thing. I mean, I think we've taken
Hmm.
the first two and shown what could end up happening. So if you're staying in that same thread, that same loop with those hallucinations, and
Hmm.
the chat bot, whatever it is, wants to help you or engage you, whatever, but it's based in its knowledge on what you're feeding it now, and you
Yeah.
think it's your friend, and it convinces you to jump from a 19-story building.
Hmm.
That's we're already headed down the problematic path.
Yeah.
And here we are. And I do believe right now there is a current lawsuit against ChatGPT, I believe, or OpenAI, because a kid did commit suicide. And apparently he was encouraged to commit suicide by ChatGPT. Um, and it's unfortunate. This is just terrible. I don't know any of the
Hmm.
details, so I don't know how the court case is going to go. I haven't read much other than the headlines, but
Yeah.
it's scary and it's very recent. And
Hmm.
I don't think this is just happening with AI. But I'm trying to think in my mind, how do you protect kids from this? How do
Yeah.
you? I mean, you almost have to be old school parent where you're just on top of
Hmm.
your kids and then saying, put the phone down for 5 hours or something like that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I really think that there needs to be like major guardrails to it, because I mean I'm reading, I don't know if this is the same one, but there's, parents, I'm not gonna give any names or anything, but it was like urging him, like they showed like some of the chats urging him to keep ideations a secret,
Ooh.
everything like that, and giving it I'm trying to read this as the help them write a first draft of a suicide note. I mean, to me,
Oh, cow.
yeah,
That's some dark stuff.
yeah, I know, and I'm thinking, I'm like, this really needs to, like, there needs to be a major guardrail with this, because this is just
Yeah.
wrong in
I,
like six ways to Sunday. I mean, actually help a first draft of a suicide note. I would think that,
there's warning
and
signs all over the place on that. Like if
yeah,
I'm an educator, and if I have a student who says something like, I'm writing a first draft of my final letter," that's
mm-hmm,
red flags all over the place. You
mm-hmm,
get that kid to a counselor and get that kid help immediately. I
yeah,
mean, and I don't know how the big companies can monitor all this, but there's got to be
there
some type of
has.
safeguard we could put up.
Yeah, there has to be some like that. I mean, we're both parents here. I would think like, if I, allowed my child to use an LLM or any kind of like AI tools or anything like that, I would
Hmm.
want like some kind of control. Like if my child was
Right.
like looking up this stuff or asked for help to write a suicide note, I would want an alert on this.
Amen.
I would
Yep.
say I would say, hey, this is concerning behavior. And I think that these things need to start getting baked into these LLMs, is like, because if you're asking ChatGPT about this stuff or any LLM, you know,
Yeah.
like they're like red flags are out. That red flag is obvious. There shouldn't be, anything. Uh, it just should happen. I can't think of any other way to say it.
No, I can't think of any other way either. I mean, and I'm thinking from a parenting standpoint. So my kids are slightly older than your children,
Hmm.
and mine have slightly used AI for a couple school projects, and not
Hmm.
anything. They didn't cheat or anything, but like for
Yeah.
example, one of my sons had to take three parts of three different animals and combine them into one for a climate. And he's not a good drawer, so we used
Hmm.
ChatGPT and we made like a Arctic deer bear kind of thing, and it came out pretty good. We were pretty happy with it. Like it did a good
Hmm.
job. But my takeaway was I am supervising them as they're using the tool at first so they could see it used as a tool and not necessarily as companionship. I'm hoping
Hmm.
that'll be the way it goes. And then, but having these open and honest relationships go a long way. If you do have a good friend
Yeah.
that you could talk to and a family member, should always be able to talk to family. Even if you don't
Yeah.
like family, you should always be able to talk to them. But
Hmm.
my takeaway is starting to become, my God, we really need to work on our human relationships
Yeah.
to avoid a lot of these. And there's still going to be mental health issues. There's no doubt. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. I've had a
But
consideration about going to a flip phone, like an old school flip phone, like the old Motorola Razors or something like that, just to
I
disconnect.
I have heard people are doing that because they can only get talk and text, or what was
Hmm.
it? They can only talk and text.
Yeah.
And I've heard people going to that. Younger people are moving towards the old flip phones. I hope they bring the Razor back. I never got to afford
Yeah.
one, and now I finally can.
Yeah, but I mean that might need might need what we need, because like with now with these smartphones, if they're AI powered and AI driven, and
Yeah.
you could have your own little AI personal assistant, like whatever Google or Apple, whichever one you use, you could
Hmm.
basically create this AI human being that exists besides you.
Yeah.
This could have a lot of delusional
You're right.
behavior and
You're right.
everything.
I
I
mean,
I,
and
I mean. I'm kind of painting a doomsday scenario, but is that really a stretch to think that could happen?
well, it very well could. I mean, I want you to think about this. Not even AI related. I know we're the layman's AI show, but not
Hmm.
even our phones are designed to keep us like the apps and everything. They're designed to keep us interacting with them,
Hmm.
and they've been designed like that for a while now. I, I,
Hmm.
I actually started wearing watches again, I think about 2 years ago. And the reason why I started wearing watches is because I read somewhere that when you check the time on your phone,
Yeah,
if
you become
you're
more connected. Yeah.
you do, and you also, this is interesting, if you see a notification pop up,
Hmm.
you've now averaged 90 seconds checking the time on your phone as opposed to 4 seconds just checking the time on your phone.
Hmm.
And when I did switch to back to the old school watch, my time on the iPad on the iPhone went down 20%
Hmm.
in the first week. Oh, what kind
Yep,
of
right
watch you
there.
got there? Is that a
Oh, I
G-Shock?
got that's a G-Shock. Yep,
Oh, I got a
love it.
G-Shock. Okay.
I love it, love
Now
it.
this
But
became a watch podcast.
yeah,
Okay.
I know. Yeah, definitely. But no, that's why I almost didn't. I didn't want to go to a smartwatch because of that. And
Yes.
then
Yeah.
because it's like I turned off push notifications for everything
Me
because
too.
like
Yeah.
every time somebody commented on your photo on Facebook, it's like I can check that when I get home. I don't really need to look at
Yeah.
that
It's
right
just
now.
me.
But
Like I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, but when it starts pinging you, when it starts pinging you, you feel that need. And
Yeah.
I know that kind of got away from AI, but going into AI, now that has like your AI companion on your phone can now communicate to your watch and say, "Hey, what's
Yeah.
going on? We haven't talked in a while." It's like because I don't want to talk to you. But
Yes. Yeah.
that's. Yeah, that is kind of scary. And kind of transitioning into our next point here, um, inadequacy and risk compared to professional care. And I
Right.
think that, it kind of flows into what we were talking about because, you could get your own AI human on your phone or AI being on your phone or whatever, and you could, give that illusion since it's always in your pocket and you're so familiar with it that could say, okay, you're a professional. It's not,
Hmm.
and everything like that. And if you're having like these kind of thoughts and everything, like suicidal thoughts, or you're going through some major things, I think last week we talked about um, it's like these AI for mental health is good to a point. And I
Right.
think like once you like really start to get into something serious, stop using AI for mental health because it's no longer of use to you.
Hmm. And I think this one is when you're dealing with a trained professional human
Hmm.
who deals with things like mental health, suicide risks, therapy, things like that, who wouldn't rather talk to that person than
Yeah.
and I think that goes back to the problem of access, which we did talk about
Hmm.
last week. I
Yeah.
I will share it is not hard. It is, excuse me, it is incredibly hard to get some of our kids who are having serious mental health issues the
Hmm.
doctor they need to see in front of them or the therapist they need to see. It is getting harder to do that. And that part
Yeah.
is scary. That part is very scary, but it's a reality. And so I do understand why people would turn to AI. But the fact of the matter is, when you get to a certain point where you're willing to harm yourself, that's the time to go see a professional, try to do what you can. Just just talk to a professional. And I do believe there's telehealth and things like that. Use the professional over the AI. It's just
Hmm.
it's the right way. It's just the right way to do
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I mean, I could see like some basic like kind of things like this. Man, I'm thinking this, and it's like, oh, this normal, or hey, check this out. But if you're really like getting in your head and everything like that, that's where, people could have the illusion that AI is just fine when it's not just fine and
Yeah.
everything like that. And I think that's where a lot of these AI bots need to like get trained on how to recognize something. And it's like, okay, these are some complex issues right there, and
Yeah.
this is like beyond what any AI tool can give you. Like there's like some things like no matter how well you train an AI, even if we go to what we talked about before with a dedicated language model,
Hmm.
you can only make that so good, and it can only be so useful to you.
Right. And
And
this actually ties into the next point because they're the same.
mhm,
It's basically this next thing that's being brought up that we're going to talk about is clinicians' concern over risks versus benefits, and that mental health professionals are stressing that depending on the context, AI tools may actually pose more risks than benefits.
mhm. Yeah, that
Uh,
that that is a very big potential, especially because hallucinations are a thing with AI,
yeah.
and everybody knows, they're, a big issue right there, and those hallucinations can cause more harm, like we just talked about.
Yeah.
Recently, the story, it helped write the suicide note.
Yeah.
Like once you start getting into that, and those are the kind of risks that could possibly be taken.
And with regards to when when I was diving into this one, I dove into this one a little more because I wanted a little more context and clarity on this one. Fascinating to me was it did this particular article that I looked at, or that was referenced to me. It did go into some of the concerns. It's not even necessarily that the AI gave bad advice on purpose. It's that the wording that the person was using led AI to
Hmm.
believe it was something different than what it actually was. And therefore, the treatment that AI suggested was not correct
Hmm.
because AI did not seek to clarify, which I do believe is something that clinicians do, which is something that therapists do. They
Hmm.
want to get to the root cause. They will ask you a lot of questions to get to where that they have a complete understanding. And our AI tools, they really don't do that unless you ask them to ask questions.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's that is kind of the risk right there because, you could tell like a doctor something, and they could say, have a follow-up question based on something, but an AI is trained just to follow a pipeline
yeah,
basically.
an LLM is going to
And
follow the pipeline. Yeah.
yeah, and once you get into a pipeline, you could be saying something you didn't quite mean in a certain way. Where if you were talking to any kind of doctor, psychiatrist, what have you, and they could be like, hold on a second. Like, you said this to me. Did you mean that?
Hmm.
And they could be like, oh, okay, no, I meant to say, instead of this word, I meant to say this word. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But an AI LLM doesn't offer that sort of affirmation or anything like that. So that's kind of like the problem right there. And th this kind of reminds me of WebMD. That used to be a go-to to get myself checked out until
Hmm.
I realized, how it could lead you down some rabbit holes. Like you could have a
Uh,
rash
y-
and you
do you
could
remember
explain
why people
something.
quit using it?
Not exactly. I quit using
Everything
it
was a
because it
cancer
was,
diagnosis with WebMD at one point.
that was
Uh,
kind of my point. Like you could have a
yeah.
rash and you could explain a few things. It's like, okay, you either need to apply some ointment or you got 6 months to live. And
Uh,
it's like,
yeah.
okay, this is ridiculous.
If
And
you said anything like rash skin stuff, it assumed you had melanoma,
yeah.
and it was it got to the point where I was on it to be comical and see if I could find something that didn't result in cancer, and almost
Hmm.
everything
Yeah.
resulted in that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like sort of the early adoptions of
Hmm.
AI, or of like kind of like it is kind of like one of the early adoptions of how an AI works and everything like that. And we could actually, point that as an example right there, is that, you could have something going on and it could lead you down a path or what have you. And, I'm not trying to call out WebMD. They tried to do something and everything, and, it could still have some good benefits to it, but as with mental health, it could lead you down something that was completely wrong, essentially.
Yeah. And that's what people are seeing.
Hmm
The clinicians in particular are seeing that the AI is not following up, which is a huge problem, which is why we shouldn't be using it for this kind of stuff, especially when you get to that certain level.
hmm
And so the last point we're bringing up tonight is that there have been some backlashes against using AI in mental health, and rightfully so. I think we've covered many reasons to justify it. In fact, the state of Illinois
hmm
prohibits licensed therapists from using AI for client therapy or communications.
mm. Yeah, this
Yeah.
I think as of right now, this might not be a bad thing.
I would have to agree.
Like
I,
as it sits right now, until we get like a proven model that
yeah,
is like you can actually like confirm, and I would want medical boards, psychiatry boards to confirm this 6 ways over.
and
I don't think this
yeah,
is a bad move at
and
all, because yeah, like we've touched on everything. This could cause more harm than good.
you know what, Brian, you brought up a good point when you talk about the medical boards getting involved or a board of psychiatry getting involved in this.
Hmm
I personally am never a big fan of putting skeptics in. I always want the middle of the road people. This would be one of
hmm
those times where I'd be like, you need to get 3 or 4 skeptics, get them in there to supervise this so
hmm
that they can keep an eye on it from a skeptical standpoint.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, you need like full analysis, I think.
mhm.
I think you need absolute full analysis. I think you need, studies from experts in the field, and this goes with any
Yeah,
sort of LLM. Once we start moving into dedicated language models. But as of right now, I, personally will agree with like prohibiting therapists for using AI for therapy.
I agree. I kind of
As
want
it
to ask
sits
what
right now.
therapists would use that, but then again, if you're young in the profession,
Yeah.
there's a whole nother problem going on right now because
hmm
there's this new class that's graduating these colleges and universities. There's rumors
hmm
that they're chat GPT in their way through college. I always say chat GPT, but there's other AI tools.
Yeah.
They're chat GPT in their way through assignments and things like that. And do you really want
hmm
that person to be the ones who help you? Well, that's a little scary in itself.
hmm
So I would
Yeah.
like to see the skeptics get involved in so that we can have legitimate therapists, legitimate,
Yeah.
psychologists and people that can actually help us with our mental health concerns.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of a thing that worries me too, is if you're writing papers on therapy or what have you, or psychology, and you're, LLMing your way through all the papers and everything, that's not a good thing. And
No,
I
it will
almost,
catch up with you.
yeah,
You will get
it
caught.
will. It
Yeah,
will definitely.
yeah,
And you can't run away from a lie forever. And
right.
you can only run so far until you reach the edge of the cliff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that does kind of scare me, and it almost makes me think that schools need to start getting more primitive as to some of
Oh,
their teaching and everything like that.
Brian, I have a master plan for how we're going to do AI in schools, but that we
Okay.
need 7 episodes and many other things. But
I think we need a
ironically, a
whole new
huge part of it
podcast.
is no power. Like it's going to be you sit down, you write your thoughts, you write your journal, you
Hmm
write, you sit in quiet, like, and then
Yeah.
yeah, there is
Yeah,
a huge
definitely.
component of the humanity thing that's been a big takeaway for me of this.
Yeah, I think is yeah, because we've been using technology to advance our education for so long, and now we've reached to this point. It's like, is it time to go back to primitive? And so we can, be more primitive in our learnings and our education and everything, so that when we do start using these tools, we're educated on what the real world is.
And just throwing this out there because I know this, there have been studies on primitive, like old school versus new school. And
Hmm
there is, when teaching children letters and how to read and things like that, there are studies that show when a kid's actually able to hold the letter A, whether it's that spongy thing that we had as kids that
hmm
we put on the
hmm
shower, when they're
Yeah.
able to hold it and make words out of it, that tactile, the touching,
hmm
is more powerful than just reciting the word on a screen or the letter on a
Yeah.
screen. Like A is for apples. No, you hold the A, it becomes
hmm
real. It's yours.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
there are studies that show that. So I am in favor of some primitive styles at times,
Yeah.
knowing that there is a technology tool that can help us after we master the basic
Hmm.
levels. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, going back, I think, not sure how it ties into psychology or AI for mental health, essentially.
Hmm.
But I think getting back to those primitive learning techniques might actually help our own mental health in the long run, to be honest with you.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Just kind
Yeah.
of getting back to that in general so that, we're not always taught go to your LLM, go to your AI, use your
Yeah.
technology and everything like that so that, we learn everything at the primitive level and we do all, you know, counting up on an abacus or whatever.
Hmm.
And, I think like connecting to that, on that level, I should say. I keep saying primitive level over and over again.
Yeah. We say primitive
But
like it's a bad thing, and it's
yeah,
it's
yeah,
really
I know.
not. It's you're learning
No,
a skill.
no,
Uh,
it's not. I think that it just helps mental health, help with mental health in general.
You bring up a good point, and I go right to as soon as you started talking about these primitive things. The example I went to with mental health in my head when you started talking, in Scandinavia, they have it's
Hmm.
Europe, Northern Europe. It's one of the darkest times of the year is winter because
Hmm.
there the darkness starts. It's ridiculous. I think they only get 5 hours of daylight.
Hmm.
And mental health is always a concern there, but it's not a big concern because they embrace things such as curling up in a blanket, reading a book, and having chocolate.
Hmm.
That is a
Or
big part of the culture. Yeah, it's a big part of the
star
culture there.
and stargazing too.
Stargazing. And I'm going,
I think they have some good northern lights up there as well.
they do.
So,
Oh, speaking of which, tonight might be a night you might be able to see it. I don't know if you heard, not Northern, yeah.
hmm.
Don't know
Maybe
if
I'll
you
go.
heard that or not, but yeah.
Maybe I'll take a walk after we're done recording and check it
Yeah.
out. But
I might,
yeah.
yeah, let's do that. We'll put our devices down. We'll go outside, see if we see any green lights.
And just look at the stars. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
would be very enjoyable. But yeah, I mean, I think all in all, kind of wrapping this up here, I think we're ready to about wrap it up. I
Oh,
think
we are.
we're good. So, this is part two. Part one, we talked about what good things can come of it. And we started to wade into the weeds as to kind of where the bad things have started to come in. And, going back to part one, I kind of stressed a point, and I think we kind of agreed on this. It's good up to a certain point.
Hmm.
It's good up to a certain level. And I think, this episode kind of says, okay, when you go beyond that, this is what could happen. And these are the bad things right here. And I think
Yeah.
like, you know, if you want to use AI for mental health, you know, go to a certain point and don't go beyond anything like really complex.
Yeah. That's the big takeaway. I mean, it's good to a point, and it's kind of that point at threshold. What's scary to me is it really is up to you, the individual.
Hmm.
How far you go with it is up to you. But we've said this in part one, we'll say it here. If you're having any thoughts of harming yourself, talk to a human, talk to a
Yeah.
professional. Don't
Yeah.
use AI.
Yeah.
Uh,
Do not use it. Do not use it
do
at
not use
all.
it. Get the help you need.
And another thing I think I need to call out are guardrails for these AI tools.
Hmm.
I mean that's what kind of disturbed me is I kind of like talking to the point where apparently an LLM started helping him write a suicide note.
That's
Like
scary
I have no idea how that could have possibly happened, but that is just
because there are
disturbing
some
to me.
guardrails on there, and I'm a little shocked it got to that point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've tried testing some guardrails before, just for my own curiosity, nothing
Hmm.
like, of harm or anything like that. But, ultimately, people writing the AI tools aren't health professionals.
Right.
They're not, mental health professionals or anything like that. They're just kind of reading and reacting and everything and putting everything in there. And if we are going to use some sort of AI tool for any kind of therapy, we need, you know, a lot of professional insight to help out and a lot
Hmm.
of professional analysis to this.
Yep. I'd say I say that's how we're going to end this one.
That's how we're gonna end this one. Okay, I think we kind of gone through this, but either way, thank you everyone for taking time out of your day to listen to us. This is part two of our mental health. If you haven't caught part one, please go ahead and check our list. We did go part one where we did go some positives,
Hmm.
where we can go with this too. But anyways, thank you for listening. My name is Brian,
And I am Adam.
and this was the Layman's AI, and we will see you next time.